According to Paul Thigpen, the author of The Rapture Trap, the fathers of the church universally believed in a post-tribulation, pre-wrath rapture. If we search the surviving church literature of the fathers, we find that they know nothing of an extra third coming of Christ, a secret snatching away of believers to escape the final tribulation. Like the writers of Scripture itself, with one voice they speak of a single advent, glorious and terrifying, bringing history to a close, and they assume that Christ's earth-shaking arrival comes after the church has suffered severely at the hands of the Antichrist. For example, St. Irenaeus said that believers will meet the Lord at the resurrection of the just, which takes place after the coming of the Antichrist, and the destruction of all nations under his rule. In short, St. Irenaeus clearly taught that the coming of the Antichrist will precede the resurrection of the just. St. Paul taught in 1 Corinthians 15, 51-52, and 1 Thessalonians 4, 15-17, that the resurrection of the just and the rapture occur together, the former immediately preceding the latter. Therefore, the coming of the Antichrist must precede the rapture. Pre-tribulationists believe that they have found an exception in an ancient sermon by pseudo-Ephraim. It was discovered by pre-tribulationist Grant Jeffrey, which he claims proves that pseudo-Ephraim believed in pre-tribulationism. However, this sermon implicitly taught that there will not be a rapture before the tribulation of the Antichrist. Tim Warner points out this part of the sermon. We ought to understand thoroughly, therefore, my brothers, what is imminent or overhanging. Already there have been hunger and plagues, violent movements of nations and signs, which have been predicted by the Lord. They have already been fulfilled, consummated. And there is not other which remains, except the advent of the wicked one in the completion of the Roman kingdom. The sermon claimed that every prediction that should take place prior to the coming of the Antichrist had already been fulfilled. Thus, the next event on the horizon was the advent of the wicked one. Since the rapture had not occurred at the time of this sermon, if every prediction except the advent of the Antichrist had been fulfilled, then evidently the author did not consider the rapture to be an event that would need to be fulfilled before the advent of the Antichrist.